Okay, welcome everybody to our workshop on choosing the right committee members and committee chairs. Tonight's presenter is Tim McMahon, who is a past district governor from the Kiwanis Club of Presque, Maine. Thank you very much for presenting tonight, Tim.
My pleasure. Normally I would start off by saying good evening, but since it is past 8 o'clock, it's technically good night, but that's not the way to start a good talk. So let's get into the program. Choosing the right committee members and committee chairs. This is going to be, I hope, practical and a lot of common sense. What I want you to get away with this also is, this is good for recruitment and retention of members. There is a reason why we do it the way we're going to suggest. Let's start off by defining a committee. A committee is a group of people appointed for a specific function, typically consisting of members of a larger group. So in Kiwanis, you're going to be picking your committee from a group of people, in theory, who you know. I hope that your clubs still use classification talks. One, it's a great way to get to learn about somebody that's maybe new to your club, but also it's the first step in a person finding their voice so they can later become a good leader. You can't become a good leader unless you find your voice. Kiwanis Club committees, we all have them. We have standing committees like membership. They deal with growth, retention, education, public relations. Then there's committees for programming. A special event like a governor's visit. If you have the lieutenant governor, you might help them plan this special event. Club meetings. Then there's service and fundraising committees. Community service, service leadership programs, the Kiwanis International Global Campaign for Children. So we have lots of committees based around fundraising, recruitment, retention, education, and developing service projects. So one thing we're not short of is committees. Do you look at your committee this way? It is set up to perform a specific task to benefit the club or the community. By getting a new member involved, they feel very good about seeing something done for their community and then they're a part of it. So number two, if a member is chosen carefully, it will help members to improve the skills they have, acquire new ones, or help teach them a new skill. This is part of the retention and recruitment. I'm old enough to remember when Kiwanis had a thing that said, "We build," a motto. One of the things was we build a better member. I hope all the clubs are still trying to build a better member as they do great community work and great work with children. You need to let the world know that by joining Kiwanis, you get a practical college education because we can teach it to you in a safe environment. Then there's help members feel connected and performing meaningful work for the community. Everybody wants to feel that they're doing something good for their community. Timeline. By July 15th, appoint all committee chairs. Who does that? The president-elect. By August 1st, chairs will select members for each committee. I know that there's lots of ways out there that clubs do it. Some assign people committees. But in any case, whether you let them join or you assign them, you should allow the chairman to pick key people they may need to get the committee over the finish line and be successful. During August, the committee should meet to review materials, goals, timelines. They'll form project schedules and submit a budget for approval to the board. So that's all done before the end of September. How many of you do it differently and why? Well, lots of reasons to do it differently. My club is too small. My club doesn't have enough active members. Nobody wants to step up and be a chair. There's lots of reasons why we don't do it, but those are the same reasons why we should be doing it. Because a person can't step up and be a leader if you don't teach them how to be a leader. What's the number one resource? Well, it's people. People is the number one resource for any committee. But what do we know about people? We know people are different. Vanilla versus chocolate. Cats versus dogs. Cars versus pickups. Baseball versus football. Well, people change though too. At one time I would have told you I would have been in the chocolate category. Chocolate ice cream, chocolate candy bars. But today, I pick vanilla being vanilla any day over chocolate. So people do change. They do learn. They do progress. Personality tests. You know there's lots of them out there. Myers-Briggs, Color, Big Five, DIS, and many more. You don't need to learn any of these to pick your committee. In fact, the experts will tell you they're split 50-50 on whether these actually work to help people pick productive committees or productive business models. For example, when I was doing lieutenant governor training for my year, we did the personality test, and Ron Forrest scored lovable, big teddy bear. And I scored analytical, planning. I wanted to be the lovable person. But what it turns out to be is Ron Forrest, though lovable, was still an excellent planner and organizer. And me, while being analytical, I can be friendly. You need to keep this in mind when you're picking committees. So picking committees, as you see on this slide, we have amicable, driver, expressive, and analytical. Well, the driver has common traits of powerful, result-oriented, controlling, aggressive. They may control people by using their anger. Their biggest fear is a lack of control, and they can appear to be militant. So there's some of those traits that are very good. You certainly would want a person who's powerful and result-oriented, but you might not want a person who's controlling and aggressive. The thing is, you have to figure out, and you'll be able to do this because you know your Kiwanis members, which is their number one trait. Just because somebody has a trait of being a driver, maybe the result-oriented is way more important to them than the controlling and aggressive. Then you have the expressive charmer, fun, extrovert, popular, talkative. They may control people by using charm. Their biggest fear is people won't like them. They can appear unorganized. The amicable, peaceful, dependable, friendly, loyal, they control people by ignoring them. Their biggest fear is change. They can appear to be inflexible. And the analytical person, well, they might be thoughtful, thorough, moody. They may control people with their mood. Their biggest fear is criticism, and they will take the information that you give them and they will add to it and pass it on. These aren't the these are the driving facts for all of these people. And you have to come to grips with the actual Bobs, Sues, Sherrys that are in your Kiwanis club so that you can pick the right person for the right role. Now, setting up a committee, there should be a chair. The chair has a lot to do. So you also should have a co-chair. The co-chair is a perfect position to put a person who's either a new person or a person who's maybe only been in the club for a year into a position where they can learn how to run a project. I use that word because we want to build a better member who can progress in their business. We want to offer the members something. So as you work your way through committees and you learn how to set up a committee and run a successful committee, it is the same as running a project where you work. The biggest difference is Kiwanis is a safe environment to learn and to grow when work isn't necessarily, because there are other people who may want the same position you want. We should have a secretary for committees. The big committees all need to have a reporting mechanism. They need a treasurer. They need somebody to help fix a budget and track all the information. You need public relations, because that's another tool for getting the word out of what you're doing, who you're helping, what it's going to be. That helps attract new members also. It also helps to make your project more successful. And what else? There can be lots of different roles. For example, when we've run a golf tournament one time, we needed to get gifts to give out. Well, we had somebody in our club who knew an awful lot of people in town and could get out there and do that. So they were put in charge of that committee. There's all types of different things. Another what else is, depending on the size of your project, you should have a risk manager on your project. If you're going to be dealing with people, you need to have somebody looking out for not only the people, the club members, but the club in general. And that would be a risk manager. The task list for a chairperson. I know the chair people sometimes, especially in older clubs or small clubs, they want to do it all themselves. That doesn't help the club attract new members or retain members. The chairperson needs to stay to their role, which is the overall leadership. So the list for task persons for the chairperson for the first time is they need to review all the information and notes you have on the committee. They need to become familiar with the club's bylaws and policies and procedures. They should schedule a meeting of the committee sometime in August. They should select the members of the committee. Whether your club selects members to put on is not the key. The key is some of the key members need to be picked by the chair. And we're going to talk about why that is in a minute. Create subcommittees if needed. Many committees are large and they have multiple parts of getting one done. So you might have to have subcommittees and chair people for those subcommittees. Then you're going to develop a committee budget because you need to get board approval. Then you need to develop a communication plan for the year. Communication plan is communicating with members of the committee, with the club to keep the club enthusiastic about what's going on your project, the New England district so you can get the word out, and then the general public so you can get people to participate in your event. So communication plan is a very important deal. Determine if the current committee has unfinished goals and commitments that your committee is expected to complete. One of the things that we have to do every year is we have a fundraiser for our Christmas baskets, but we use the word Christmas baskets on our fundraising. So all the money unused has to roll over to the project for next year. Somebody has to account for that and make sure it's done. Then you want to review and establish long-range and annual goals with the president-elect. Do they want to see an increase in your project that you're running, some changes that were never done before? And then you'd want to develop an action plan based on the goals. The ongoing tasks, this is why the committee chair needs a strong committee. You must plan and conduct regular committee meetings and activities. Manage your committee's budget. Work with other committees in your club. Monitor progress towards your committee's goals. Write and submit monthly reports to the president and secretary. Attend club board meetings and be prepared to report on committee plans and achievements. Before we get to this slide on matching up the people with the roles, if you have a small club, and I'm not, this is just a fact of life, small clubs, their committees have very few members and they have less to choose from, but it's important to choose the right person for the right role. Some clubs, you might be decent size, but your actual active members may be a lot smaller. So again, picking the roles is critically important. In my club, we kind of go against Kiwanis International in the fact that to be a member in good standing in the Presque Club, we have 200 opportunities in a year for you to either attend a meeting, an interclub, a project, some event. You have to do 20, be a member in good standing. If you're not, we may ask you to leave. We want a club that's active and thoroughly engaged with the community, and you can only do that with active members. So here's some members. Now your names might be different. Sue, who understands budget, might be Sally, might be John, but you all have these type of members. Sue understands budgets. Maybe we have her working on the budget. Bill is a bully to others. Well, maybe Bill's not one for the particular committee that you need to raise most of the money for your club to function. Sarah's a friend. To me, that's comfortable to have a friend, but I'd want to know what she brings to the committee. Joan is friendly and loyal. Elizabeth's high energy. Those are good people. Dean's not a good listener. We might find a role for Dean, but it ain't going to be in communications. Nick loves the gossip, so he's not going to be in communications. Jennifer's analytical and planning. We're not going to put her on the committee and then ignore her because she's going to not be a happy member. Bob is an experienced member and a very busy person. Well, a busy person is a good person because they're organized. Jean never follows through on commitments. John, he's a new young member. Well, you want to pair him up maybe with Bob so that John learns the ropes and gets some mentoring. Steve's a good worker, knows lots of people. Mark's a great organizer. Bonnie's result-oriented. Betty's a good communicator. Peter's someone you do not care for. Again, like in the business world, it doesn't matter if you don't care for them. What can they bring to the committee? It should be your number one thing that you're running through your mind. So now you have a committee. What's next? Well, what's next is goals, timelines, and budgets. The budget. It's not the club treasurer's responsibility to do a budget for a committee. You need a committee treasurer to keep track of the expenses and the revenues. Provide bills and backup documentation to the club treasurer. Final report. Committee develops the budget. Why is that important? You know, someday your club treasurer is not going to want that position, and you're already training somebody else to be able to step in. This is how we train people so that they're not afraid to step up and take over offices when we need them to. We need this training. And when you're developing a budget, it's a simple budget. List every aspect of revenue that you can think of, how you're going to charge, what you're going to charge for, and then be just as particular on expenses, what it's going to cost. Ask all the questions of everything that you need to know about cost so that the board can look at it and give it a thumbs up versus a thumbs down, because it might be a project that loses money. Board of Directors approves projects, ideas, and functions. They approve a budget for projects and functions. They ask for more details. They give directions. So when something goes to the board on a regular request can kill it. They can vote it down. They can send it to committee, which is, I hope, what most of your clubs do. You send it to committee. You set up a committee. That committee already submitted a budget. You approve it on your first board meeting, and then hands off. Let the committee do their job so that they can learn leadership. They can learn that when it's time, they can step up and be a vice president, be a secretary. This is where you get those trained leaders. You could send it, approve. You can approve it without sending it to committee. That's usually done when you're crunched for time, but it's not a good idea. You want your committee to work. This is where people feel it's important to be a Kiwanian. They're doing something for their community, is when they're working on committees. Or send it to the committee with a recommendation. We recommend this amount of money, not to exceed, something like that. And remember, there are no bosses in Kiwanis. We're all volunteers. So everybody needs to be a leader. Even the board of directors' decisions that aren't to do with discipline can be overturned by the rest of the members of the Kiwanis Club. They can have a special meeting after a special announcement and a 2-week wait. They can come in and overturn what the board of directors has done. There are no bosses in Kiwanis, just leaders. And how we get leaders is through this process. Our communication plan, it's very important. You need to communicate with your committee, email, telephone. You need to let them know what the progress is. You need to let them know what the changes are. Then you want to communicate to the club. You want to let newsletter, a website, social media, weekly. Let the club know what's going on so they can feel connected and that you can feel that your work is getting backing. Club leaders, you might have to give a monthly report. That's going to come from the committee's secretary, go to the club secretary and be reported. You want to keep the division and the district informed. Email reports to your lieutenant governor. And then if you don't have a lieutenant governor, I'd email them to the governor so that you can get backing from New England district, and then to your community. This is where you're going to get members. If they can see through promotions and through news that you're doing something to help the youth of their area or to help somebody in need, that goes a long way to somebody saying, that might be a club I want to join. Communication plan is extremely important. Then there's SMART goals. Specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound. So here's an example. We want to increase the service hours provided to the community by 10% by September 30th, 2014. Okay, so we're specific, 10% increase, measurable from October 1, 2013 to September 30th, 2014, action-oriented. We need to identify the action steps to complete the goal. Well, we need to get a service chairman. We need to organize some service projects so they can work on it. We need to encourage all members to participate. And we need to recruit more members so we can contribute more service hours. Realistic. An increase of 10% on service hours is definitely within reach, and I believe that most members would believe this is an attainable goal. And time-bound. Completion date is set for September 30th, 2014. So you meet all of the criteria of a specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound goal. Now, we've talked about, and we're getting ready for questions, we've defined a project. You define the roles and choose your members. You perform a draft budget, you set goals, you communicate, and you had to get approval. That's a quick overview of setting up a committee, picking the right members, the job of being a chair, and the fact that these things like having people work on committees so they can learn to run a project in their business, teaching people to speak up so that they can be noticed where they work, having the ability to teach people so that they can progress in their workplace is a way of attracting members and delivering high quality programs, services to our community and to the children who live in our area. And now I'm open for questions.
Tim, we have one question here. Someone says that they like the idea of a committee treasurer and creating a budget for committee. But what is the best way to convince everyone this is what we need to do, since the club treasurer has always done the budgeting since the beginning of time?
Okay, so my answer to that is you need to go to the club and explain to them what I just explained. Having a treasurer for each committee is training people so they will be willing and able to step up when it's necessary. Maybe that treasurer wants to stay to the day they die. I hope they're healthy forever. But if they had a heart attack and they died, do you already have a replacement? It's very hard to find a treasurer. We all keep them when we get one, and nobody runs against them each year because we need to train more people so they can step up. So I would go back to them and say, this is a training mechanism to attract new young people. My club has attracted a lot of young women. I've not been very good at attracting young men yet, but young women, and they are very happy to learn public speaking. They're very happy to learn how a budget works. They're very happy to learn how to set up a committee and run a project. And a number of them that are now 2 or 3 years into the club have got really good promotions. And they thank us for it. This is what part of Kiwanis is. It's serving the community, but there's nothing wrong with helping the members become a better person. And as they move up in their businesses are now more attractable for other members. And it's also more attractable for us to approach those businesses when we need help. Anybody else got a question? I wanted this to be practical. I wanted this to be common sense. Don't overdo it. Look at the members you have, pick them for the role. Make sure you pick the right person. For example, nobody in my club would pick me to go knocking door to door. I'm not very good at that. I won't even use cutout coupons to save money. That's just not my thing. You want to have somebody plan and organize You want to have somebody who doesn't mind shoveling, I can do all of those. But they know that I'm not the person to go knock door to door. That's what you need to know about when you pick members for the committee. You're going to need 2 or 3 in very important spots. You need the ability to be able to pick those people and put them in.
Okay, well, I think if we don't have any other questions, Tim, I think that brings us to the end. So thank you very much. I know when I was going into being president of my club, I greatly benefited from this workshop. So I appreciate you presenting it again for all of us.
Now, it's a lot of fun presenting the common sense stuff.